Hello folks, well I've put together a little slideshow for you of my recent trip to Arabia. We started in Dubai where we boarded the boat, but first I went on the big red bus, and the stop here was, the first stop was called the Wafi Mall, which is an Egyptian style shopping mall with pyramids and sphinxes and all the rest. Quite over the top, like most things in Dubai. This is a cafe where we had coffee, and then back onto the bus, where the first picture I was able to really get was the mosque, the Jumeirah Mosque, on the way to Jumeirah Beach, where stands this famous landmark, the Burj Al Arab, the 7-star hotel with the helipad on top, overlooking the marina and Jumeirah Beach on its own little island in the sea. Also on another man-made island is the Atlantis Hotel on Atlantis on the Palm, which you will know, I'm sure. The palm is best seen from above, from the aeroplane, so you can see the shape of the fronds. Can't see it from the ground, of course. That's the monorail, which they're just building, and forms part of the metro network. There are some very, very, very tall residential blocks in the new marina, very expensive area. And now to the Dubai Mall, which is the largest shopping mall and overlooking a lake. Inside that building we've just looked at is this fantastic souk, very exclusive and expensive. It's probably why they need people in it. And the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, which I tried to go to the top of, but unfortunately is fully booked. But I did see the musical fountain, which is modelled on the one in Las Vegas. It's wider than that one though, the widest fountain in the world, which was rather hard to capture on camera. But I tried and got very wet in the process. Okay, the next stop was the Dubai Creek, which is a 12-kilometer long waterway which divides the city in two. That's the boat we went on, and a little trip up the waterway, starting at the seaward side, where there you see the boats, fishing boats and boats loading other cargo ready to go to sea. On the one side of the river is mainly big office blocks and banks and things, but crossing the river are these little water taxis. There you see the little taxi stations, and the Bastakia Quarter, which is the old traditional quarter where they preserve the architecture. In particular, these wind towers on the houses, which is like a sort of old-fashioned air conditioning. The breeze was drawn into the wind towers and into the house to cool it down. That's one of the water taxis which I told you about. There are hundreds of them crossing the creek, bringing workers and tourists for very little money to the other side. And this is the last photo from Dubai, which was the Dubai Museum, actually one of the old Sheikh's palaces. Okay, now we're at sea, and someone was very excitedly on the deck said they spotted an Iranian warship. Whether it was or not, who knows. That's a lady I made friends with on the ship, Italian lady working in London. So we were watching the sunset, and all these little islands are on the way to the Straits of Hormuz, which is where the Persian Gulf meets the Arabian Sea. It's the 100-mile wide waterway. Very strategic and very dangerous waterway between Iran and UAE and Oman. So there is lots of shipping activity. Right, next morning we arrive in Muscat, Oman. A beautiful place, quite different from Dubai. Onto the bus and first stop the Sultan Qaboos Mosque. Built in 1970, so it's modern, but airy and enormous inside. It holds about 20,000 worshippers at a time. That blue rug is where the tourists are allowed to walk. The rest is fantastic prayer rug, which obviously we weren't allowed to walk on. That chandelier is made of Swarovski crystal and weighs 6 tons, I think. And I took that picture of the beautiful inlaid marble on the walls and part of the rug, which was made specifically for this mosque and took 600 women 6 years to weave. That's another view of the interior, showing you just how big it really is. And out in the courtyard now, lovely cool marble. Of course you have to take your shoes off. And now leaving again on the bus. That's just a backward view of some of the minarets and the greenery. It's so fantastic with these places built in the desert. Next on to Mutra, which is just outside of Muscat. That's the Mutra Souk. Very atmospheric place where the roof is made of palm leaves and all these lovely little shops selling fabulous souvenirs. Then on to the Oman Museum, where there are lots of displays of history and costumes and art and so on. I particularly like the display of the irrigation system. This model shows how they use natural rivers rather than sprinklers and the like. Those Arabian oryx, that's the national animal, that was a sculpture competition. Okay, so now we're in the civic area, which is very spacious, and again you can see the wonderful greenery that they've managed to maintain in this desert country. Here's one of the forts which overlooks the sea and protects Muscat, built by the Portuguese, Vasco da Gama, in the 16th century. That's the Sultan's administrative palace. Quite a modern design, but very colourful. And some more of the administrative buildings with these fantastic mountains in the background. Now back on the boat, we're checking out the Sultan's yacht. He's off for the weekend on holiday, so he parked his yacht next to us. Note that the buildings in Muscat are all of a certain height. You're not allowed to build anything, any skyscrapers or anything taller than those ones which you can see. And all traditional architecture and all the white and beige colouring of the desert. Off we go in sunset, back at sea, leaving Muscat, and there you can see the forts on the hill and the low profile of the buildings, and Sultan's palace overlooking the sea too. The next port of call is back in the Emirates, and it's a place called Fujairah, and that's a similar fort, also built on a hill, built by the Portuguese. Next to their heritage village, which is mostly for the tourists, but also to preserve a lot of the aspects of the culture. That's the welcome dance. Not much of a dance, not too much energy used, but then I suppose it was very hot. And a special cow who's helping work a very special well. which goes very deep into the ground. Again, not much energy being used by either cow or person. But it was a very, very hot day, and I suppose that's really just the culture. These traditional houses are made of palm fronds and camel hair, and they were actually lived in till quite recently, really, even into the 20th century. They're open to the elements to let the coolness in. Inside one of them are these traditional ladies wearing the Fujairah mask, which is peculiar to this area. Very strange type of burqa. It doesn't look very comfortable to me. Making all sorts of artifacts and trinkets for the tourists to buy. That's a closer view of one of the houses with the beautiful mountains in the background, and one of the traditional fishing boats, because of course fishing and pearling were the two main sources of income before oil. You might have noticed the electricity pylons are everywhere. Everybody in the UAE and Oman, for that matter, has got electricity. All the Bedouin who live in these very, very far outposts in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of the desert, they've all got electricity. This guy is trying to sell rides on his donkey cart, and that's just the sign at the entrance to the village, which I took so that you could see. And now on to the souk. These beautiful clothes. Most of them Arabian, but also some, as here, are Indian. Um, these wonderful tailors and beautiful quality cloth. Of course, a lot of Indians live there. This is the oldest mosque in the UAE, built overlooking an oasis, and it's about 600 years old, called the Al Bijia Mosque. It's actually built right into the mountain, in that mound of rock. You go right into the mountain when you enter the mosque, and the tower at the top is where the call to prayer comes out of. Okay, so we're back at sea now, on the way to, back to Oman, and a place called Kasab, which is right at the tip of the Straits of Hormuz, a very strategic position, with lots of forts and things, because it's overlooking this very busy and strategic waterway. I, however, didn't see much of the town. I took this 4x4 safari up the mountain. It's quite hair-raising, really. These gravel roads with a very tight U-bends, so close to the edge of the cliff. You can see some of the roads coming up there. And at the bottom is a Norwegian-style fjord. There are lots of these fjords all the way up this coast, with fishing villages and boats anchored down the bottom. We're up at a viewpoint, taking pictures of our drivers for a little bit of a tip each, and specifically our driver, Abdullah, who was a great show-off, although he couldn't speak a word of English. He did very well with his sign language, standing on a rock, pretending he's falling off the mountain. And here he's telling us, be careful, there's a big bump coming up, and everybody's saying, whoo, keep your hands on the wheel. And that I just took was a rather nice rock formation, getting higher and higher up into the mountains, until we reached an oasis, which was lovely, green, with date palm groves, olive groves, donkeys, goats, and Bedouin settlements. Each uh, Bedouin settlement had its little piece of ground which was fenced off. You could see the fences, and they've all got electricity. The government supplies electricity to all these very, very far-flung places. It's amazing. we had a bush toilet stop, so there was one of the South African ladies going to find a tree to go behind. That bush there is very characteristic of these mountains. It's like an acacia tree, but the roots are very long. They go right 30 feet apparently down into the earth to look for water. And you find them all around these mountains. So now we're back into the vehicles and further up the mountain to look for fossils. These fossils were amazing because they're fish mostly, and they're at the top of the mountain, not at the bottom. Apparently it's volcanic material that gets pushed up, and these fish land up at the top of the mountain, almost 2,000 feet up. And there's some more. You had to wet the rock before you could really make them out easily, but there are thousands of them all over the place. All kinds of mostly sea creatures. I like those little heart formations. I don't know what those are. So that was as high as we went. We had a rest. We each found ourselves a rock, just have a little sit down and a drink of water, and back in the vehicles for setting off down the mountain. Very, very steep roads back to the ship. It was quite hair-raising. It doesn't look so steep there, but I promise you it is very steep. There were one or two warning signs. I actually took a photograph of that one because there weren't many. That was a very, very steep U-bend. And there's another vehicle down the bottom, and a wadi, which is the river valley, where when they do have the little bit of rain that they have, a river would quite soon form. You can see the green trees. Those acacia type trees are very stark green against the background of the mountains. Those little houses are family settlements. 6 or 8 families, or 6 or 8 members of the wider family would build houses together in a cluster. Back at the ship now, and we're just getting on board, and I noticed this little tent has sprung up there since the morning, right on the quayside. I don't know, he must have been selling something. Those little boats are very interesting because apparently they go all day back and forth from Iran, which of course this is the closest point to Iran, straight across the Straits of Hormuz. And these little boats, each of them carry one sheep or one goat or some or other livestock, which they unload, and then they load up something like a television set or other electronic equipment or some such luxury goods, and back they go to Iran, 100 miles away, which of course is all completely illegal. Okay, so back on the ship and leaving again at sunset, and for the last stop, which is going to be Abu Dhabi. That's a bit of the skyline with a beautiful emerald green sea, or aqua blue, or whatever you call it. Not many photos, unfortunately, in Abu Dhabi because I wasn't at the window of the bus. I was sitting on the aisle, so I couldn't get pictures. Anyway, that is, for what it's worth, the Emirates Palace Hotel. Very, very beautiful inside and out as well, with traditional architecture. The main stop now for us this morning was the White Mosque, which is the most spectacular building, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, with the white marble and the blue water and the reflections and the gold and the blue sky and all the arcs and the domes. Absolutely fabulous. That's some of the detail from one of the domes. It's wonderful inlaid and sculpted marble, and it cost millions and millions and millions to build. Until very recently, it was the biggest mosque in the world, but apparently there's one being built at the moment which is even bigger. So I just love that, with the bright blue sky and the gold tips to the minaret. The theme inside is of flowers and leaves and beautiful pastel. You can see the flowers there, beautiful pastel colors on the white walls, and that clock in Arabic telling people when to come to prayer. That's the main chandelier in this mosque. All precious stones and gold, and that's a wider view of the main interior of the mosque, with a magnificent Persian rug again on the prayer rug on the floor. That's the detail of that fantastic chandelier, and the detail of some of the calligraphy on the walls, which is verses from the Quran. And some more of the leaf and flower motif in stained glass in the windows, and another one of my profiles against the sky, which I couldn't stop looking at. And that's me looking rather unglamorous in my mosque outfit. Anyway, better safe than sorry. That's somebody else from our party taking a picture with her headscarf on. And look at the gold, the leaves on the pillars. Another couple, that's the couple from my dinner table on the ship. The Canadian couple whose daughter lives in Doha. And another picture of the water and the reflections of the gold and the pillars in the water, which is just so mesmerizing. And the very strict dress code, which had to be very strictly adhered to. Rules for men as well as for women. And me, again, sitting in the sun. So to be honest, I was quite glad for my covering, because it was an absolutely lethal sun that day. And now leaving the mosque on the bus, just some of the greenery on the outside. The next stop was of slightly less interest to me, but somebody might be interested. This is the Ferrari World and the Yas Marina circuit, Formula One circuit, which is, well, it's of great importance in the modern Formula One racing world. Next door is the Abu Dhabi Arena. I think Cirque du Soleil has just been there. And now next up is Andrea Bocelli. Next stop, and the last one in Abu Dhabi, was the Museum of the Future of Abu Dhabi. They're building an absolutely enormous cultural area in the sea. Behind me, you can see part of the reclaimed land where they're starting to build. Back on the ship, it's the last night, so the waiters are all merry, as we are at our table, all saying goodbye, and it's sad that it's the end. There was one more day before we had to disembark the ship, so I chose to go on a desert safari. First we visited a camel farm just a little further on, stopped so that our driver could let some of the air out of the tires in preparation for bashing the dunes. There was also a chap with a falcon, a hooded falcon, and you could pay a few dirhams and hold the falcon. We then went into the desert and did some dune bashing, but alas, not for long for us, because our tire came off its rim, much to the horror of everyone in the vehicle. including the driver, who had a bit of a job to do. So everyone else had to stop because we all had to go in convoy, and we had lots of chance to take some lovely pictures of the magnificent scenery and the changing colours in the late afternoon sun. It's gorgeous. And while we were keeping everybody waiting, the man with his falcon reappeared and tried to get a few dirhams off people, but people weren't interested. They were all sitting on top of dunes and things, so he jumped back on his quad bike and he dropped the falcon in the process. So I think he was a bit embarrassed at this stage. Picked it up and quickly jumped back on, put it between his legs, and off he went into the sunset. I must say, looking at these pictures now, they all look so beautiful and peaceful and blissful. Actually, it was quite noisy and frenetic in the desert. It was only a couple of miles outside the city, and the local yokels bring various desert machines of all shapes and sizes, from quad bikes to huge cars. There you can see some of them. And when they saw we had a flat wheel and we were all standing about, they thought they'd come and show off. So it was really quite noisy. Anyway, that's us on the go again, and we finally did get some peace when we stopped to watch the sunset. It got very rapidly darker, and we were very soon heading to the desert camp where we would be for the evening's activities, starting with the camel rides. That lad was absolutely obsessed with his beautiful young female camel, whose name was Francina, of all things. She was very friendly and she just wanted to be petted like a dog. Having said that, some of the other camels weren't as friendly. They're actually quite grumpy. There are some of the girls having a ride. It's dark now, and we had a rather tasty barbecue in the desert with all sorts of indigenous foods. And some of the ladies had henna paintings done on themselves by that lady who was very clever and very artistic. And then, of course, the inevitable belly dancing, followed by a cup of desert coffee brewed on the fire, and then back home.